Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Play, Pause, Rewind, our 63rd episode. We are back faster than we've ever been before. Only a week this time, but the Flash is fast, so are we.
Yes.
Niles, how have you been the last week or so?
Doing just fine. Enjoying this, just this surplus of great films this summer too. Going to the movie theater pretty regularly, and
It's a
yeah,
good
just
season.
loving the summer. Yeah, so far. How about you? How have you been?
Pretty good. Pretty busy. Had some labor that I had to do, and I start my new job tomorrow, which is pretty crazy. So my
Ooh,
unemployment is coming to an end finally.
thank
um,
God.
yeah, for real. But yeah, nothing really to report. It hasn't been all that long since we last recorded. Um,
Exactly.
but if you couldn't tell by my earlier comment, we are talking about The Flash this week. And we will start off with a couple minutes of non-spoilers, and then we'll dive into spoilers. But as you probably know, The Flash is a continuation of the DC EU Snyderverse adjacent series and is an adaptation of the Flashpoint comic book in which Barry Allen, the Flash, travels back in time to save his mother's life. But, butterfly effect. His actions cause consequences in the present. And so he comes back and the world is different. Oh no. And he's got to solve the problem. Stars Ezra Miller, Michael Keaton, Sasha Calais, Kiersey Clemens, Michael Shannon, Ben Affleck, Maribel Verdú, Ron Livingston, sorry, and the Unwilling Spirits of the Dead.
Yep. Which we will
We'll
get
get
into
more into
later.
that later. Directed by Andres Muschietti. What are your overall thoughts on The Flash, Niles?
When we first left the movie theater, because we watched this together just the other week, I was definitely mostly positive on it at first, but I'm feeling more lukewarm
Yeah.
on it as time kind of goes on, and it feels to me as like it was slightly underwhelming,
Mm-hmm.
with all the build up to it. And I think this thing has been in production for so many years at this point, between the writing and everything. So it's like it's just taken a lot of time, and this is the
Yes.
finished product. So it's like,
To
it's just a little underwhelming to me,
yeah.
you know.
To put that into perspective, that last note, this show was announced, or this movie was announced just after the pilot of the TV show, The Flash. And the TV
Wow.
show, The Flash, just ended after 9 seasons, like a month or
Wow.
two ago.
I had no idea it was that long.
Yeah, it's been a very, very long time. Uh,
Mhm.
and I did not like this very much
Yeah.
at all. There were a couple of solid moments and solid elements, and there were some concepts that I liked in theory, but in practice did not work in this movie. In a movie with maybe a couple other drafts or a lead actor who has not just gone on a violent crime spree, including assault and alleged kidnapping. Maybe I would have liked it more, but that is the hand that we've been dealt with this movie, and it does color the experience. We don't have to dwell on it too much, but we do need to address the Ezra Miller in the room. They have been a fucking menace for the state of Hawaii over this last year. Several years ago, they put a
Yeah.
fan in a chokehold and threw them to the ground in the middle of a department store. It
Oof.
a lot of the time you say evaluate art on its own merits, right? But I think it's important when the lead actor has suffered no consequences for violent crime over the last couple of years. So
Yeah, it is tough to separate it when the artist has such notoriety
mm-hmm.
and people know about things that they've done, things that they said. I've had to grapple with this concept myself with many of my favorite artists over the
Mm-hmm.
years. All of a sudden they turn out to be the worst person you ever imagined, and you're like, damn, this sucks. And I'm
Oh
not
yeah.
saying that's what Ezra is at all, but it's
No.
like it is it does taint your view of the
Right.
film and the
Right.
media.
Yeah. As far as we know, they're not super bigoted like a J.K. Rowling or a Kanye or something. They're
Yes,
just
exactly.
doing violent crimes and the like. And look, I will say too, I hope they get the help they need. It seems like they're
Yes.
going through some shit. I hope they get it sorted out, but they need to maybe go to jail for a little bit too. um, But beyond all of that, I don't particularly like Miller as Barry, and this could be just because I used to be a fan of the Flash TV show on the CW. I fell off that ages ago, but I really liked Grant Gustin's portrayal, and Ezra Miller has just kind of been grating for me even in Zack Snyder's Justice League, which I overall liked. I don't really like Miller's performance. So if you like Miller as Barry, you may have a totally different perspective and enjoy this a lot more.
Yeah, I think
but-
that is kind of one area where you and I do differ, because I enjoy Ezra Miller as the Flash, especially like in the past films that he's been in. He's always played this role of comic relief. Yes, thank you. They've always played this role as comic relief, and I feel like they do really well with that role. And I don't know. I really like their portrayal of the character. But yeah, I think overall this film, it's not as impressive as I would have hoped it to be. And everyone's talking about it online, like every kind of article that's written about the Flash, there's always this excerpt about the CGI or the VFX, because there are some pretty terrible points and some unnecessary things that they throw in with the CGI and VFX. And I think you and I are on the same page about that. And I feel like a lot of people too is like, why did you do this?
Yes. And just Andy Muschietti, the director, has said that a lot while Barry's in the Speed Force, a lot of the CGI he sees in those sequences is meant to look a little bit off kilter because we're seeing it from his perspective while he's on Speed Force. And no, it's just unfinished. And if it was a deliberate choice, it was a poor creative choice, because you made a decision that made your work look unfinished. And if there was like a time or money thing, that's one thing, but there are lots of different things you can do to distort imagery of people when a character is in the Speed Force. You don't have to make it look like half-baked CGI. But you do have a note here that I think is right on the money. This film could not have come out at a worse time for its own sake. Good Lord.
Absolutely. Like, we just had two of the best superhero films, like two of the best films in the genre, with Across the Spider-Verse, which we just reviewed. So go check out that episode. And we also reviewed Guardians of the Galaxy 3. So please go check out those episodes. But, those two, I think, unequivocally across the fan bases of both of those films and just the superhero fan base in general, I think everyone agrees that those two are top tier. Those are some of the best products ever made in the genre, and it's going to be hard to beat them. And The Flash literally comes out like
2 weeks later,
after these films hit, and everyone's seen them, and it's just like, by comparison, automatically, this film is inferior. It's weaker than the other two.
And we have, I think, reached a point in this genre where 4 or 5 years ago, superhero movie comes out, it's making $800 million to $1.5 billion. That's not the case anymore. People are picking and choosing which of these they see. Ant-Man Quantumania was not very good and did not do very well. Black Adam, allegedly not very good, didn't do very well. This not very good, didn't do very well. But things like Spider-Verse are crushing it. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is doing really well as well. Not as well as previous entries or previous Marvel movies, but I think a lot of people would say, oh, this is doom for the genre. I think it's the opposite. This is the best thing that could happen to the superhero genre, because now the studios realize, oh, we can't just pump out whatever garbage. Oh, hi, Shadow. There's my dog. Look at him go.
Hey, Shadow.
They have to try. They aren't guaranteed to make money off of these anymore, which is good. But and like I said a second ago, there are good ideas at play in parts of this movie, and we'll touch on those specifically in spoilers. But there is like a student mentor dynamic between the two Barrys that's in the trailer, and that should work. For me, it doesn't, but I think that's more because I don't like Ezra Miller as an actor, at least in this character. So it's like, not only am I seeing a performance I don't like, I'm seeing it twice. A second Ezra Miller has hit the state of Hawaii.
Yeah. Oh God, what a dark joke. Well, I love
Sorry.
that. Well, and there's good humor in this film too. I feel like that there's some good jokes sprinkled in there, and like, uh, but yeah, and there's some good unique characters too. I would say so. I would agree that there's some good ideas, some good things, but then there's
Hmm.
also some bad things that really just kind of let you down, like the CGI, the fan service elements too. There's
Yeah.
some plot holes, but there's plot holes in every superhero film, and you know,
Right.
the plot holes don't really matter because this whole concept is ridiculous. So
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. I will say I thought Keaton was all right.
Mhm.
I've just seen the Keaton Batman movies for the first time a few months ago, but it was fun. And Supergirl, I thought
Yes.
while I thought she's very underused, she is one of the stronger elements of the film, and I hope that we get to see. I hope she gets to keep playing her because I think she can be really good, and there's no reason not to bring her over into James Gunn's new iteration of DC. Because if you didn't know, all this shit's getting wiped, and James Gunn is launching a new creative initiative for the DC films.
Hmm.
We can talk about more of that later. But do you have any final thoughts before spoilers?
No, let's dive on
All
in.
right. Would you? Well, I guess would you recommend this movie?
Oh, good. I I think if you're looking for like a fun film on a Sunday afternoon and you're into superhero media, yeah, I'd recommend this movie. Not going to recommend this to everybody though. I think it has its kind of time and place, and especially when there's so many better
Mm-hmm.
superhero movies being produced, it's tough to recommend this over those ones, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I would even say like if you're looking for a fun movie on an afternoon and like superhero movies, go watch it Across the Spider Verse again. I like
Yeah.
that movie is excellent and deserves your money more than this does. It's you'll be able to watch this on HBO Max in a month.
Yeah.
It's not very good.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just kind of a fucking mess. But let's get into
A little bit.
spoilers so we can
Yeah.
talk about it
Yeah.
more.
We'll get into it.
All right, you want to go through a quick plot
Yeah,
summary for us
I'll
there?
do a quick spoiler summary of the
Mm-hmm.
plot. So, we already know that Barry is forced to work with his younger self and give him his younger self powers to help him return to his timeline or dimension or whatever it is, his
Mm-hmm.
world, his universe. We'll say that. Yeah, that's what I meant. And with the help of an older Bruce Wayne, they rescue Kara Zor-El and assist her in her fight with Zod. But the two Barrys working together, they eventually realize that they are unable to change their fates in this universe, and the young Barry sacrifices himself to save the multiverse and allow Barry to return to his reality with
Mm-hmm.
some minor changes. Does that? I feel like that summarizes
More or
it well
less,
enough.
yeah, at
Yeah.
least to jump off. And I will say I mentioned it in non-spoilers, but I did like the concept of our more experienced Barry losing his powers and
Yeah.
having to coach this less experienced version with the powers. I like the dynamic that, oh no, while I'm trapped here, I cannot do my superhero stuff, so I have to coach this idiot and get him to do the things that I would normally do. I
Yeah.
thought that was a really fun idea, but like I said, in practice, it is just Ezra Miller acting against himself. And as someone who's not a fan of that performance, it's just irritating a lot of the time, even though the
Sure.
character dynamic I like a lot. So,
Hmm.
but the movie opens before we get to that point, we start in like the regular world. We see Ben Affleck, Bruce Wayne, Alfred with Jeremy Irons. Even Wonder
Yes.
Woman shows up, which I didn't know was going to happen.
Yeah, that's a
Um,
little surprise to me too. Yeah.
yeah. Aside from the VFX, I thought this was a fun enough sequence.
Yeah. No, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a pretty good intro chase sequence, and it kind of gives you this brief experience with, the Justice League, like, oh, that's operating. This is kind of how it looks.
Hmm.
It's not just everyone as a team. It's like, oh, you come together at these certain points. And
Right.
but yeah, I liked that sequence too. I thought that was one of the better sequences of the film. And since we're talking about sequences, I think that one was a standout for me. And then the prison escape sequence midway through the film, where they
Hmm.
where they get Kara out of the Siberian prison, I thought that was really neat as well.
Yes, I agree. I liked that, and I liked the little touch of Batman kind of like calculating the right weight to use. That's a little callback
Yes.
to his movies. But also it's just it's just like a fun little undercut. It's like, okay, wait, okay, we gotta doing some math real quick, make sure we get this right so we don't kill ourselves.
Yeah.
I almost wish that and this would be impossible in this day and age, but if the marketing kept that it was Kara Zor-El from us, so that we thought they're going to get Clark. And also, I think it was probably a little play on Superman Red Sun, because in that, Superman lands in the Soviet Union instead of
Yes.
Kansas. And regarding the opening, too, I think the sequence is fine, but I think I would have liked it a lot if this if one, we had more time with these characters before this and gotten to know them like for real, and two, if it wasn't the last gasp of a dying franchise, because I kind of like it's like, oh, this is our ordinary world with the Justice League. They're all doing their own thing, but they work together on small missions sometimes. They call each other up to help out, and then they have their big team ups, as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
I like the element of seeing all these heroes interacting on a everyday level.
Yeah.
Something we don't get as much in Marvel yet, even though it's been going on for much longer.
That's true though.
Yeah, but I like I like the idea of that, but it doesn't work because we're never going to see these characters again, probably any
Yeah,
of them. So it's just like another day in their lives, and then they will be gone. But let's
yeah.
talk about the premise of Flashpoint itself and the
Yes.
execution of that idea. And if you're unaware, basically the Flashpoint storyline is Barry, in I guess a moment of weakness, typically goes back in time to save his mom from dying. Usually it is the Reverse Flash that kills her. Interesting that this movie does not feel the need to touch on who killed Barry's mom at all.
Oh yeah, it's true. Actually, I didn't.
Baffling decision there. But basically, Barry goes back in time, saves his mom, comes back to the present, and it's a Sound of Thunder butterfly effect thing. Like in this movie, the entire world has changed. Thomas Wayne is Batman instead of Bruce Wayne. Martha Wayne is the Joker, and it was Bruce Wayne who died. The Atlanteans and the Amazons are at war with each other, and then basically Barry has to team up with the versions of those characters and fix it, And
Yes.
So there have been a couple different adaptations of this story. I have not read the comic. I don't think you have either, but both of us have seen versions of this. So the DC animated film, which kicked off their little shared animated universe, you have some notes about that one, Flashpoint Paradox.
Yeah. I've been working through some of those films because I think I do enjoy the animated adaptations a little bit more than live action sometimes, but that's just kind of, I think, just preference of mine, just long-standing. I just like animation experiences. But when I compare this film to that Justice League, the Flashpoint Paradox, I feel like I like the animated film a little better than this one, because it feels a little bit more, truthful to the source material first off, but then it feels more quick paced, doesn't dwell on things too long. It's different in a lot of ways compared to this one. Some of those characters that you just mentioned, Superman's trapped like in a prison cell, Batman doesn't exist, but he does. It's his father, and there's all these neat little differences, and I really enjoyed that in the animated thing. But it's also such a brutal and beautiful film. There's this YouTuber I like called Implicitly Pretentious, I think.
Yeah, I know that YouTuber.
Yeah, and I think he did a video on the Flashpoint Paradox and why it's a really great film. And so I'll just reference him and just say, go check out that video, because he knows what he's talking about with that film, because it's a brilliant little adaptation. And just when I compare it to this, it just feels like that one had a lot more, I don't know, just maybe gravitas or just soul than this one. This one feels like it's missing a little something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think you touched on something really good there about the movie having a soul, because this is a movie that I do not think has a soul, and we've come off of, again, Across the Spider-Verse and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, both big, fun, popcorn superhero movies, but both of them have soul. Like there is creative heart put into those movies, and I do not get this. Feels like a movie that has had 6,000 different people cooking in the kitchen, and studio interference and reworks and market testing and just a lot of bullshit that went into it. And I am baffled by the positive tweets from like Stephen King and Tom Cruise, which I checked, and I hallucinated that Tom Cruise praised this movie, because if he did, that tweet is gone. I checked; he deleted it if it was real.
Yeah, it was just a dream. Yeah,
yeah, maybe. But another adaptation of this is on the CW Flash, which I used to watch all the Arrowverse stuff for a long time, and then they adapted Crisis on Infinite Earths, and I thought it was like their worst crossover, and I kind of fell off after that. Arrow had ended, and the Flash had gotten pretty bad by that point, and whatever. But the early seasons of the Flash go pretty hard, and Barry's main motivation for a lot of the first season is if he gets fast enough, he might be able to go back and save his mom. And at the end of the season, after lots of other twists and turns, basically, like, it turns out his mentor the whole season was actually the Reverse Flash, who was trapped in the present because he like lost his speed when he initially went back to kill Barry's mom. And so basically they make a deal where they'll like speed up the time travel, whatever. Reverse Flash will go home and Barry will go back to save his mom. And he does go back, but then an older version of himself is there and kind of like makes eye contact with him, and he's just like, don't do it. And then he doesn't, but he like waits and he goes and talks to his mom as she's dying and like unmasks himself and says who he is, and he's like, we're fine, Dad and I are okay. Like, the scene is incredible. It's so good. It makes like adults weep watching it. It's just so well acted and written. And then he doesn't save his mom in season 1. And then in season 2, they get his dad out of prison. They exonerate him, and they're having a big party. And the villain of season 2 fucking kidnaps him and shoves his hand through his chest right in front of Barry in the room where his mom died in the season 2 finale. And so, like, in a moment of emotional weakness, Barry like snaps and goes back and saves his mom. And that sets up season 3, where Flashpoint happens for like 3 episodes. But that is a thing that this movie is missing. I don't believe that this Barry Allen would do something this dumb, you know? Like, they understand the consequences of this action. And I normally don't care about canon stuff all that much, right? But this is where what is canon is actually causing a little bit of a problem, because in 2017 Justice League, Barry does not time travel at all to save the rest of the heroes. That just does not happen. In the Snyder Cut, he time travels a few seconds to help save the day. And in that movie, he's talking about like breaking the rule. Like, he knows it's a rule he's not supposed to break. So now I'm confused. Which version of the character are we following? Because they have very different storylines in that film. And yeah, it just seems like he does not have suitable motivation to completely alter the universe potentially in this movie. He's just like, I could probably do it, right? Like, I can, so like, let's just do it. And then he does it. I didn't buy it. I didn't buy it at all.
Yeah, it is a little odd that he makes this decision. Like, they have that slight justification for him interfering with the past because he gets the video evidence, and they realize, oh, the video's not usable to free his dad and exonerate him of the crime. So he's still just going to be alone on the outside. He's got really like no friends. The only person who like is remotely nice to him is a reporter, Iris West, and like his work friends are just shitty. So like, I think that was the thing that kind of pushed the thing that broke the camel's back, that pushed him over the edge. And that's what made him make the decision to travel back in time.
Sure.
At the same time, though, I agree with you. I don't think it's enough. I don't think it's sufficient. And compared to a full season of like television where you get to develop this strong connection with a character like Barry, like on the CW show, that gives you a lot more justification and motivation for his actions,
Yeah, and I just think it's weird that both the DC animated universe and the live action movies chose to make their Flash's first story Flashpoint. It feels to me like that should be something that comes a little later. Like maybe have him develop a romance with Iris West, who is his main love interest and is not in this movie for more than 5 minutes. And develop his role in the Justice League and his relationship with these characters so that we connect to the world that he is risking to go save his mom. So that we have like some emotional clue in. It's like, oh, don't do this, dude. This is a bad idea. Also, Weekly Planet mentioned this in their episode today, and I was thinking about it in the movie too. That alibi that Henry Allen has would not be enough, because when he gets home from the store, like she's just been stabbed and like there are no witnesses. And and okay, I'm going to take it a step further too. If Henry Allen is exonerated, the only other person they're going to look at is Barry. No one else was there.
That's true. Yeah, there's a lot of wrenches that get thrown into this.
Yeah. Like the fact that the movie did not, I guess they didn't want to have Reverse Flash in this, but not having Reverse Flash, who is presumably the murderer, makes this whole situation seem very strange, because the alibi barely checks out. And even if it did, not good for little Barry, who's now little murderer Barry. But just and that doesn't matter as much. That's not the main problem here, right? Like I get the emotional core and the idea of I want to get my dad out of prison, like, or I want to save my mom initially, but failing that, like, I'd like to exonerate my dad. I get that. And if I liked this version of the character, it would probably work, but I don't, so it doesn't.
Well, yeah, and I just think it just goes back to we need more time with the character. We just need to see his perspective and just understand that a little bit more, go on some adventures with him to develop that bond, and then we can do the Flashpoint story. But it's a movie, didn't have enough time.
Can we talk about the way he runs? Why does he do
it's so silly. Yeah.
I don't get it. I'm sure it's like a stylistic choice to make it look like an exaggerated comic panel or something, but some things work in one medium and not another. And when Barry is running around doing this, it's ridiculous. It doesn't work.
It's absurd. I liked that point in the film too, where they kind of have that on the nose joke about it when he loses his powers and he tries to run around the room.
That was
he
funny.
He just looks cartoonish. Yeah. It is a weird run.
That was decent. And I do like how when he's teaching younger Barry, like, you're not ready for this. Yes, it's too advanced. He gets it on the first try, but very poorly, like always messes up. I do like younger Barry experimenting with powers very prematurely and causing just mass chaos. I thought that was a pretty good joke. And then they do the thing where Barry's clothes burn from the friction. They do that in the TV show as well. But yeah, and yes, it should be acknowledged, Miller has a tough task in front of them here. They are playing two versions of the same character. And I think they do a good job of making them distinct. I'll give them that. I agree. They feel like the same character at different points in their life. And I do like the element of older Barry being like, oh God, am I that annoying normally?
Yeah.
So there are moments where it works. The performance does not work for me overall. The take, I guess, this take on the character doesn't work. And I don't know if that's, and I guess I should be fair here too. I don't know if that is a Miller decision or if that is a directorial writing decision by Machete, Whedon, or Snyder at one point in time. That's not always the actor's fault. So I'm not going to put that squarely on their shoulders, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like Ezra's, like I kind of said earlier too, their Flash has always been this comic relief role, and the obnoxious nature of them as a character has been kind of that source of the comic relief. But he would never really take things seriously. He would just kind of be like, what is brunch? Stupid jokes like that.
Yeah.
That one's a bad one, obviously. But I think it was nice to see him take on more of this mentorship role, because he does kind of have those moments, Barry as a character, he does have those moments where has to be more serious, and he has to try and be like, okay, I need to make the decision there's not a Batman around to make this decision for me. I need to figure out what to do next with you.
Right.
So I thought that was a nice dynamic between the two of them.
Hmm.
And yeah, like I said earlier, I've always liked their performance of this character. And I feel like, yeah, they delivered pretty well. It is
Okay.
a difficult task, to play two versions of the same character, and you're kind of
Hmm.
having to act off of like yourself
Yeah.
in a way. Um, I mean, I know you have a stand in there for like the shots and everything like that, but at
Right.
the end of
But
the
you
day, you're
have to
trying.
you do have to do two performances ultimately.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I did like one element too where the like evil Flash at the end, it's revealed that it's that younger version of Barry just after probably billions of attempts to correct this the mistakes of this final battle
Hmm.
here so that Supergirl and Batman don't die. And and he almost becomes like this version's take on a reverse Flash. And I only say that because uh I think the origin of Reverse Flash, or maybe it's Zoom. My knowledge of this character is from the TV show, so it's Reverse Flash
Yeah.
on the TV show. Like, they're from the far future, and they view the Flash as like their personal hero that they want to be like. And then something goes wrong
Hmm.
somehow, and they become the Reverse Flash. So, but this version directly says like you were my hero, and I pushed you out of the timeline so that you would find me and like create me, basically. And that
Oh, okay.
and that snaps the younger Barry out of it, which is when they sacrifice themselves to save older Barry so he can reset the timeline, all that stuff. I thought I liked the reveal because it was kind of fucked up when the like evil Flash unmasks, and it's like, oh god, you've just been doing this for like 60 years of your time. Like, imagine
Yeah.
how many attempts and how many splinters in the timeline you're causing to try to fix this thing. I
Yeah.
thought that was kind of like cool. I
Yeah.
genuinely, I thought that part was interesting.
Yeah. That's one of the better parts of the ending, which we will get to.
Yeah. Um, but another bright spot of the film is Sasha Cale, or Sasha Kale, as Kara Zor-El, or Supergirl. I like we said in non-spoilers, I think she gives a good performance for the material she has. She doesn't have
Yes,
much,
I
but
agree.
I always understood that Supergirl is like Superman grew up on Earth, right? So he is very much a human at heart, and he's very optimistic and kind-hearted. Kara, from what I understand, is a little bit more cynical and doesn't have quite the same emotional connection to Earth because the what happened was she is sent from Krypton at the same time as baby Kal-El, but she is already a teenager or a young adult, and she's sent to protect him, like
Right.
she says in this. But her in the comics, her pod gets knocked off course, and then Superman, as an adult, finds her, and that's why she's younger than him in the present day because she's like frozen in the negative.
Oh, okay.
Phantom Zone is DC. Negative is Marvel, I think. Um, but I liked we get that little touch where she's like, I don't really give a shit about helping these people. Like, I got here and got put in a cage immediately. But then she goes to
Mhm.
join Zod, or see Zod, I guess, and feel like, oh no, he's just killing everybody. I don't really want to be a part of this. I liked
Yeah,
that. I liked that it wasn't just like, yeah, I'll help you right away. So
me too. Yeah, she needed a proper motivation. I feel like that
mhm.
achieved that goal there. But yeah, I think she gave a great performance, and yeah, she had some great action, I would say, in this film.
Mhm.
Felt like it was earned to see her kind of flying around and doing all kinds of
Yeah,
badass
she was
stuff. Like,
awesome.
yeah, so I think I agree. I would love to see her again in future DC projects. Like, who knows if they will, but like, I think if James Gunn's going to continue down and bring back Supergirl for future projects, I think she's an excellent choice
Yeah.
for the role.
Supergirl is one of the confirmed movies they're making.
Excellent. Well, she
An
should be in that.
adaptation of Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, which is a comic I want to read. Haven't read yet, but that's one of the first ones I'll pick up next time I go to the comic store. One thing though, why did Zod's little sword kill her? Was it made of kryptonite or something? Because I don't understand why she kept dying to the little blade. Maybe there was something in Man of Steel that explains why that would kill them, but it was very distracting. It's like, I think she should survive that because she's a super person.
I agree. Yeah, it's like I'm not gonna go back and rewatch Man of Steel to understand why it killed her instantly,
No.
but yeah, I thought that was a little odd, and we could just nitpick that shit to death for sure.
Yeah. Well, and that's another thing too. It's like we don't normally nitpick things like that, but it's like in a better movie, that's not something that would matter. But because this movie isn't that great, things like that stand out more, if that makes sense. Because it's just like, oh, it's just adding onto the pile and further taking you out of an already meh scene,
Yeah, that's
And
true.
and she was the best part of the movie, so when she gets killed off, it's like, oh, okay, I guess.
Like, awesome. We're just left with the two berries, and that's it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But yeah, you got a note about Zod
Oh
here.
yeah, I like. It was just nice to see Michael Shannon back in the role of Zod. I know that you and I both don't share a lot of love for Man of Steel,
No.
but I think that he does a great job as Zod as a character.
Mhm.
So it was just nice to see him again in the role. I think he does a good job with it, and for a villain in a Superman film, I like
Yeah.
him. So
Yeah, he's not in it very much, and I'd
yeah,
almost go so far as to say he's not even the main villain of the movie. I don't think there is a villain of the movie. It's just Barry.
the
Um,
villain is Barry.
yeah,
It's himself. That's it.
which
Yeah.
is like, I, it doesn't land, but I think that is a unique choice in this
Yeah.
genre to make a movie where there really isn't a villain. It's just the villain is the hero's own mistakes. I did think it was funny that Michael Shannon has been like literally come out and said, "Yeah, I didn't really like doing this. I didn't think it was very interesting." He
Fair
kind
enough,
of said
dude.
like it or not, there was a creative vision to Man of Steel, and I enjoyed being a part of that. But this was just bad. Like
Whatever that creative vision was, I don't know what it was, but I was there.
yeah,
So
yeah. But like,
I'm just happy to be involved.
but you can, as a performer, like even if the vision is bad, you can feel when the director and the writers have like an idea for what's meant to happen. Like you can feel that on a set when you're in a production, and you
Yeah,
can feel it as an audience member too. Like I don't like Snyder's vision for Man of Steel, but I recognize that it's there and I respect him for having it. I just think it was the wrong direction to take a Superman movie,
sure. Yeah. Well, and I feel like, there's on the flip side, there's great actors
Mm-hmm.
who will not be thrilled about the role, but they'll still do it because they appreciate the character and the mythology.
Mm-hmm.
Like uh what's his name?
Alec
Uh
Guinness.
no, but the guy who plays Odin in the Thor
Oh,
series,
Hopkins, Anthony
Hopkins. Thank you.
Hopkins.
I was blanking on the last name. Yeah, like I saw like he shared that. Yeah, this I didn't particularly enjoy the role, and it was kind of a stupid movie, but I appreciated the opportunity, and it was
Yeah,
it's just kind of fun to be a god in a
right.
movie.
Well, and you even have like people like Alec Guinness who played Obi-Wan, who's like, I think his quote was like, I don't really understand or like this movie, Star Wars, but I get why it works, you know?
Hmm.
Like he understands why it resonated with people, it just wasn't for him, and he still put in a
Yeah.
great performance. So like that's what really matters. But we haven't mentioned him much yet, but Michael Keaton, of course, is back as Batman,
Yes.
and it's like unclear enough as to whether he's the exact same version of from the Burton movies or not. I think he's solid enough here. Like he gives a good
Hmm.
performance. I don't know if fans, like lifelong fans of his Batman, will like this portrayal or not, but I thought it was solid. I enjoyed it enough.
I liked it overall, and I appreciated that this film, at least with the representation of Batman,
Mm-hmm.
both with Affleck and then with Keaton here, it felt like a little more grounded in reality in a way. Because like I think there's a mention like Batman he's like in the beginning sequence he's attached to like the lasso,
Mm-hmm.
like Wonder Woman's lasso, and he makes like a comment about like, oh, like I should use my money more proactively to end poverty rather than
Yeah.
fighting crime, and it's like exactly. And then this
But
Batman, Michael
okay, but
Keaton's.
that's the thing about that. That's the thing
Yeah.
that it started to bother me because apparently people who are more well versed in Batman lore know this. Batman does that shit too.
Yeah, that's true.
and
Yeah.
and also just like, yes, in the real world, if someone like Batman existed, absolute psychopath, like messed up
Hmm.
demon of a man who should be locked up. but this is a fiction and superhero stories are fun. Yes, it would be more practical and effective for Batman to use his financial resources for the betterment of Gotham City through social programs and stuff like that. But then you don't get a Batman movie. And I like Batman movies. So let's keep doing the Batman thing.
I'm okay with it. Yeah.
I'm fine with it as a joke, but as like a
Yeah,
serious criticism of Batman, it's like, come on, man, suspend your disbelief a little bit. No one is advocating for the reality of Gotham.
right.
Like, it's a shithole.
it's a comic book world, and that was kind of the thing with Keaton too. Is like, I think his character, you mentioned, like he's older, he's kind of like obviously retired, and he's like, well, Gotham's like kind of a really nice place to live now, and it's like,
yeah,
was that because of you, or was that because like of like you stopped being Batman? But it doesn't matter. But I thought
it was
that
probably
was
both.
neat.
It was probably just like his mission is Bat, but I did like that element that's like, oh, he hung up the cowl because the mission was complete, right? And it kind of like the same idea as Nolan's Batman. It's like, this is a temporary measure. Eventually, Gotham has got to move on beyond Batman, and so do I. I liked that element of it, and yeah, maybe he was donating to social programs and being Batman, and the combination made Gotham a wonderful place to live.
Yeah.
I also liked that he's like still a ninja and a total badass when he's fighting normal speed Barry, but the inexperienced fast Barry keeps dodging him because he just has super speed. It was good. It was a good little scene.
Yeah, it was a good element. Yeah, I like that little fight scene in the kitchen. But yeah, I think Keaton, he gave a pretty good performance throughout, and I thought he was one of a good strong character throughout the film.
Yeah, and I two more notes on that. I will say this bat suit should never be seen in the daylight. Not meant for that. It's a very odd choice to put really any Batman in a fully like high noon lighting scene, but especially the Keaton Batman. Like, that suit was very specifically made to always be in shadow. I feel like it works best there. But also the way he describes time travel. I'm sure this has been done elsewhere, but I like the spaghetti metaphor thing, where it's not just everything after the point you go back that changes, but it's like you are now the center of a new divergence, so it diverts ahead of time too, like in the past and the future. It just leads to, for future multiverse stories, and the multiverse is getting a little played out at this point, but it's like, oh, you can make even more interesting and distinct variations on these things because now the past is being altered too. And I thought the spaghetti was a solid visual metaphor. You know, it's like some things will line up almost perfectly, and then others will be all tangled, and you never know. But
I like that. I like that metaphor too. It was a good one.
Yeah, but you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. Somehow, I don't know how they pulled this off. It's even stupider within the context of the scene than it is isolated in the trailer. I don't know how you pull that off. But they are having a conversation, and there is nothing in the dialogue that leads up to that line. And it's a line from the first movie where Bruce Wayne is pretending to be like a little unhinged to like throw the Joker off guard, right? It's an act, one. And two, the dialogue in this movie, they're just having a conversation, and then he says, "You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts." And it's like, why did you say that? No one was prompting you to say anything remotely like that. Why?
Yeah, it was a weird choice to put it in right there when they're being like, "You ready to go fight Zod?" And it's like, why didn't you save that line for somewhere else? Did we even need that line?
No,
we didn't.
It's so the fan service. We haven't even gotten to the worst of it. That's like I mean, it's stupid, but that is bad, but it's completely inconsequential compared to what is to come, right? And yeah, I think a big problem with this movie, though, beyond all the stuff we've talked about and we're going to talk about, is that it almost tries to do the Avengers Endgame thing, where it's like, let's go through the greatest hits of the series so far, right?
Yeah.
But the universe is so fractured with two different versions of Justice League existing, and the rushed nature of the team up in Batman v Superman and Man of Steel just like being one movie and none of these movies being like universally loved or anything like that, that it's like, man, you don't have greatest hits. You haven't made them yet. It's like a band putting out like our top 10 after your first album. Like you don't have it.
Yeah, no,
You
that's so
got
true.
and revisiting Zod's invasion in Man of Steel, and it's weird because that movie came out 10 years ago, but it's
Yeah.
there have been, let's say, four, and count Justice League as one movie. There have been, oh no, what, Aquaman, nope, and Wonder Woman there too. Okay, there are a lot, there are more movies in the series I thought, but there's been no momentum, and no, it doesn't feel like in Endgame, when they go back and the text flashes on the screen, it's like New York 2012. It's like you feel something in that because we have gone on a very long
Yeah.
journey with these characters and they have grown significantly since we were last here with them. That doesn't exist here. It's a bunch of characters who did not meet Zod in the first movie fighting Zod in a empty field.
That's true. Yeah, they have no relation to him. It's just except for Kara. But
Yeah.
yeah, like we didn't see the Flash in
And that
that
part
film.
works. The Kara bit works
Oh
because
yeah,
there's like
yeah,
the
it does.
emotional, like he found Kal-El and killed him as a baby, and that makes her snap. That one element works.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. That piece works. That's they are the only people who have any relation,
Mm-hmm.
like any form or kind of familiarity.
Yeah.
Barry, he knows him from the other universe, but it's just because he tried to go help, and that was kind of it. Like he didn't really
Mm-hmm.
do anything. Batman wasn't there, or not this version of Batman. So it's
Right.
like I agree that yeah, it does not feel earned to be
Mm-hmm.
playing like the greatest hits, as you were saying.
Exactly. Yeah. And I do like the premise though. Like if the series up to this point had been executed well and consistently, the idea of a catastrophic event from an earlier movie happening again, but this time the people who stopped it aren't there. That's a good hook. That's a good idea. But in execution, it doesn't work because the groundwork wasn't laid to make that emotionally satisfying.
Yeah.
And again, like I think we mentioned already, but seeing the Justice League kind of working together at the beginning is another element that should be fun and should really work. But because those previous movies are so inconsistent in quality, and because this is not just another day in the life, but the final time we're gonna see them, probably, it doesn't feel right. Like it just feels off.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think though, if I didn't have issues with the actor and their actions, and just I didn't if I liked their performance, I think the emotional core of like I wanted to save my mom and I messed things up and now I just want to like fix it and then get back and help my dad. I think that idea works in theory. Again, a lot of this works in theory, but it just doesn't land for me.
That's fair. That's just kind of how it is for a lot of people. And then in theory, fan service is always a great thing. Is it though?
No.
Not always. Not always. Always is a big exaggeration.
Yeah.
Because there's some big fan service here at the end of the film. In our third act, during the climactic final battle, we get a bunch of CGI cameos.
Yes. And my rule on fan service, what makes good fan service or not, is two things. One, it needs to serve the story that you are telling in this moment.
Yes.
It needs to be for the characters, not for the fans. That's the main criteria. And if it's not that, make it subtle. A little thing. Like a prop in the background or something like that. But this, what the fuck? This was so vile. Like I was actually angry watching it. It is the worst part of the movie, and it's yeah. You have a note here, and then I'm gonna dive in because I'm gonna rant.
Well, yeah, like and we already mentioned the note earlier too, so we don't need to go into that. It's just
the effects.
On the effects and the director. But just to recap for everybody at the end here, what we're referring to is Barry's in his little speedball, and they're trying to correct the whole fight with Zod and everything, and it's causing all the universes to kind of collapse into each other and crash.
They're like colliding or something.
Colliding, yeah. They're just these orbs floating around him in space, and they just start to collide, but we get these zoom up shots on each world where we get to see little iterations of Superman or
Uh-huh.
Batman, and it's disgusting.
Yes. So they are using CGI to recreate dead actors. And I think that's gross.
Mhm.
Especially in the case of George Reeve, the black and white Superman, because apparently, if you look into it a little bit, he committed suicide. And why did he commit suicide? Because his career like died. He got typecast as Superman and couldn't get work anymore.
Ugh.
Uh, and apparently, the movie released on the anniversary of his death too, to make matters even more insulting. And he has no
Wow.
living family to consent to putting him in this movie. Like
Wow.
that's the worst one. But then we also see Christopher Reeve, who's also dead, and Helen Slater, who is alive at least. Fortunately, she played Kara's adoptive mom on the Supergirl TV show on CW.
Oh, okay.
But George Reeves Superman and Helen Slater's Supergirl. Then we see Nicolas Cage's Superman Lives Superman, but not really, because Nicolas Cage is not in this movie. This is CGI, and he's fighting a spider. And this is not the
Ugh.
most offensive one, right? This is just whatever. But one, get Nicolas Cage if you're going to do this. But
Yeah.
this is one where I really realized like how stupid some elements of fandom were, because in our screening 10 to 15 people clapped at this. And this is a movie that doesn't exist. It was never made. You can't
Yeah.
have an emotional connection to this character because you never saw him.
Hmm.
There was a documentary made by the late John Schnepp called The Death of Superman Lives, What Happened. And basically, the story, as I understand it, is Kevin Smith was brought in to do rewrites for this movie, Superman Lives. The studio exec gave him like absurd notes. It's like he can't wear the costume and he has to fight a big spider at the end or something. And
Okay.
Kevin Smith just rewrote the whole script. And then Tim Burton came on and was going to make a movie starring Nicolas Cage, which is where that picture of long-haired Nicolas Cage in the Superman suit comes from. That's what this is. And it's like, okay, this one's not offensive because he's Nicolas Cage is alive, but it's just dumb in the
Yeah.
context of the broader thing. And then apparently we see de-age John Wesley Shipp, who played Barry Allen in the 90s, running by as Jay Garrick. But
Oh yeah. Hmm.
Teddy Sears, also from the CW Flash, was asked if that was him, and he's like, no, I'm like raising a baby. I'm too tired to do something like this. So no one knows for sure what that was about. And then we also see Adam West Batman, also dead. Uh, so it's just
Yeah. This is
one,
so weird.
and this is Star Wars's fault.
Mm.
Because
True.
Rogue One resurrected Peter Cushing to do a unnecessary scene with like shiny Grand Moff Tarkin. And then it's not as bad because Mark Hamill's still alive, but the DH Luke Skywalker, it's like when you clap for stuff like that, that gives the studios permission. And they will take that permission because all of these, the wonderful thing for them is they don't have to pay the actors because they're dead.
Yep. Hmm.
Um, but here's what they should have done to start with.
Oh
Grant
yes.
Gustin, Keenan Lonsdale, and John Wesley Shipp. 3 versions of the Flash from the CW show. And you know, the best part about it is they're alive. They're actors who are still acting. You can
Yep.
have them in your movie. And this is the Flash. They played the Flash. Why was the thought not to there to include other versions of the title character in your movie?
Hmm.
You want Superman and Supergirl, Tyler Hoechlin and Melissa Benoist. Tyler Hoechlin is currently playing Superman on TV in a show that is
Right.
very well liked. Melissa Benoist was Supergirl for like 8 years or something on CW, and they're great. You want another Superman, Brandon Routh. He played the continuation of the Christopher Reeve Superman in Superman Returns, and he's
Right.
also in the CW universe as Kingdom Come Superman. You could have done 2 Supermen with him. You want an even more Superman, Tom Welling from Smallville. Include any character from Smallville. Include any character
Yeah.
from the Arrowverse. Christian Bale Batman, Joseph Gordon-Levitt
Mhm.
as Batman, Val Kilmer, all of these people still alive, available,
Mhm.
presumably.
Well, they just
Baffling.
they chose to go with the dead ones instead, and the ones
It's
that are, because I feel like, yeah, there's plenty of people that have an affinity or like have nostalgia for some of those older
mhm.
Supermen, but at the same time, that's not the target audience of this movie. The target
No.
audience is modern audiences who are more familiar with the superhero genre and
Mhm.
familiar with Ezra Miller,
Right.
and enjoy these more modern characters.
Mhm.
So yeah, why didn't they get any of these living ones to come back and do some kind of surprise cameo? Yeah, it doesn't make
Right.
sense.
It just it's and it's like ethically, it's just better if they had done it that way. And it's like, and the reason that Grant Gustin and John Wesley Shipp and them weren't included apparently, that was the stated reason was due to time. It's like, well, you should have included them above a lot of the people you did include, so maybe cut those for
Hmm.
time. Um, and then beyond that, none of these cameos have any effect on the scene they're in at all. It's the same scene if they're there or not there in terms of what matters and like about the main characters and the plot and the emotional journey of the characters. They do not need to be there. They don't. It's like Barry is looking at them on a TV. They don't interact. They don't like go through their universes or something.
Hmm.
They don't do anything creative with it. It's just there are a bunch of different colored orbs, and then we zoom into the orbs and we see all these different people, and then it's over. There's one exception to that, but it's not from this sequence, and that exception is George Clooney. Uh,
Yes, that was one of the best reveals all movie, if not the best one. Because yeah, that was, I didn't see that coming. I don't know why I didn't peg that from million miles away, but that was the appropriate time to bring him back because I was laughing out loud at that. That was great.
yeah. Well, and it's the only one that's not like a perversion of the sanctity of life or whatever, you know. And
Well,
it's
yeah.
yeah,
Well,
go for it.
and it's one that's subtle too, because yeah, like we mentioned, he Barry Allen does one thing in the past where he moves
Mm-hmm.
like the tomatoes to the top shelf so that way it can exonerate his dad, but won't hold up in a court of law. Who cares? That's just us in reality here.
That's funny.
And I think, with the George Clooney reveal, it is just like a small change. It is
Right.
still basically the same Bruce Wayne, maybe a little bit different, maybe a little bit more suave, but
Mm-hmm.
I assume that they still have this relationship. But
Yeah.
but it also opens up that door of like, well, then maybe there's a different Wonder Woman, maybe there's a different Superman, and you could,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of a good way to reset things. But I think this was a really great cameo to throw in there, and I'm glad
Mm-hmm.
that they did him over like someone more serious like Christian Bale, who I would have loved to see, but like Clooney, no one's expecting that.
Yeah,
Like no
I
one at
don't want
all.
anyone touching the Bale Batman movies. Leave them alone. But
Yes.
I the reason I and I'm seeing statements that the Clooney one is really stupid too, and it looks bad. It's like it was clearly a late reshoot. And it visually the scene is ugly. But the reason I think the Clooney one works is it's actually part of the story. Like
Hmm.
it's and it has a Sound of Thunder ending like vibe to it, right? It's like Barry gets back. He thinks he's in the clear, but he made that one change that we don't find out about until like earlier in that scene. But it's like, oh, I did it. I did it. I did it. We're good. We're good. Everything looks right. And it's like, oh no, it's the wrong Bruce Wayne. Like that's it's fun because it plays with the character's actions and the tension of the final thing. And do I want to see Clooney be Batman in a movie in the future? No. I like this as like an end of series, end of movie thing.
Yeah.
It's a type of movie ending that we don't really get that much anymore, where it's like a last second reveal that totally alters the universe and then the movie just ends. Like when it's bad as well, but like when Mark Wahlberg gets back to Earth in the 2000s Planet of the Apes movie, and then there's just like a big ape version of Abe Lincoln in the Lincoln Memorial, and all the cops are monkeys, and it's like it's that type of ending where it's like you think you're out of it. It's a horror movie ending, right? Like
Yeah.
the 2000s late 90s horror where it's like the heroes are escaping. It's like, oh no, they're secretly in a bigger trap. It's that type of thing.
Mhm.
Maybe I'm just nostalgic for that type of ending that I don't really like.
That it's like, oh, but you thought you were in the clear? No, no, no,
No,
not
yeah.
quite yet. No,
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
no.
It's like the heroes are running out of the like horrible place they've been in, and then the camera pans back and there's like a guy like manipulating the whole world from behind a computer screen or something dumb like that.
Yeah, those kinds of big, like, oh, this reality is a lie kind of
Hmm.
reveals. It's like,
Yes.
shit.
Um
Like they have their place.
yeah. But the final battle taking place in a big empty field is one more kind of negative thing. Not a very interesting
Yes.
location. And before the Snyder heads come at me, for not liking Man of Steel, in part because of the ending being so violent and destructive. The problem with the ending of Man of Steel is not that it took place in Metropolis. That is a good idea. The problem is that it didn't feel like Superman was saving people and mitigating damage. Of course, logically, you know that he is saving the whole world by beating Zod and destroying the engine or whatever. But
Yeah.
the scene does not have the vibe of a superhero saving people. It feels like he's more focused on beating Zod in a fight, collateral damage be damned, than helping people. A good example of how to do this type of sequence right is the first Avengers. They're in Manhattan, but they are always focused on like containing the enemies. Remember, and they're talking about how like, oh, there's civilians in here. We got to go get them out, or like stuff like that.
Yeah.
Maintaining a
Create
perimeter.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like that's how you do this. But the DC movies and a lot of Marvel movies too, like overcorrected in the other direction, where it's like we're gonna just put them in a fucking empty space where we don't have to worry about civilians and we can blow up as much stuff as possible. And
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of
It
lame.
was a very sterile environment where
Mm-hmm.
there's no risk of civilian casualties. We can just focus on the action and these characters flying all over the place, zoom in. It doesn't create a very interesting environment.
No.
Yeah. It's at least in Man of Steel, you did have like just civilians running around. You had some people on the ground,
Mm-hmm.
like so you got a little bit of that civilian perspective, but like it felt like there was more stakes there, and you
Yeah.
kind of felt a little bit more invested. But again, I haven't seen that movie in 10 years,
No.
so
And I do question about that movie. It's like, and we see it in this movie too, the part where like the world engine thing is like lifting all these people up and then slamming them into the ground, just like presumably shattering every bone in their body. And it's
yeah.
like, yeah, that raises the stakes, but it begs the question, is this the right tone for the climax of a Superman movie? I don't know.
Hmm.
I don't think so. But then that's part of where I don't love Snyder's vision for these characters. It's just so fucking grim.
Yeah, very
But
dark, very yeah.
yeah, but there were stakes and there's vision there, and I don't feel that here. Even though the universes are collapsing in on each other, it feels hollow.
Yes, yeah, it does. Well, and I mean, at least this film, kind of like what you mentioned earlier, with James Gunn taking over,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of wiping the slate clean, with the exception of Aquaman 2 coming up. Now we'll have a whole new, I'm assuming, new actors in new roles.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna have some very different stories that aren't just Wonder Woman and Superman. It'll be different takes on those characters, but we'll get other characters like Blue Beetle and
Yeah,
probably some other people. So, I think it is a good. This movie does provide kind of a good built-in reset button
reset.
with the time travel and everything.
Yeah,
So it was kind of the right time to get out, I guess.
yeah, it's probably overdue. But
Hmm.
we also get a post-credit scene with Barry and drunk Aquaman Arthur Curry, still played by Jason Momoa, and seems like Barry has been trying to correct the multiverse, and then in every universe, Aquaman is the same guy.
Yeah, I'm
I,
okay with that.
yeah, I'm fine with that too. My read on that, my very cynical, like business perspective read is Aquaman 2 is yet to come out. They want people to see Aquaman 2. This is reassuring them. Don't worry, he's still Aquaman.
Yeah.
Please come watch this movie. It was very expensive and we need to make our money back.
We need money for drinking, so please come watch this movie.
we just gave Christopher Nolan a 7-figure check in a show of good faith. in hopes that he comes back to our studio, we need you to see Aquaman 2.
Well, yeah, it was uneventful as a post-credit scene goes, but it's
whatever.
Yeah, it's whatever. And I guess any final thoughts on The Flash from you, Dylan?
Not very good. I didn't like it. I probably won't watch it again. I liked Supergirl, and I hope we see more from her, and from Sasha Cale as an actress, both in this character and without. Other than that, I could take or leave any other element of this movie. I'm done with it. I don't want to think about it anymore.
Then let's not. Yeah.
What about you? Anything else?
Yeah, I would just say it's a mixed bag. If you
Yeah.
have, if you got nothing better to do and you don't have a better movie to watch, it's not a terrible way to spend 2 hours, but
it's
you could
not the
probably
worst
find
movie. Yeah, it's
Oh
like
yeah, it's definitely
whatever.
not. It's not the worst superhero movie I've ever seen. That
No.
is for sure. I've seen a lot of schlock, and even just thinking back to like those early aughts and this shit that was coming out at that time, like the infancy of the superhero genre that we have today. It's like things have come a long way from the origin, from the shitty origin stories we were getting and all that. So
Oh, I do want to say one more thing. So in the battle, they go, "Come on, Barbie, let's go, Barbie." Seemingly out of nowhere, the two berries do this, and apparently there was supposed to be a needle drop at some point in the movie of Aqua's Barbie girl, and it was cut out, but they kept those lines in, so it just
that hurts my head.
And if that doesn't give you like insight into the production shit show that must have been this movie, I don't know what will. Because it's got it like you got it. Cut the lines or keep the song. What the?
Yeah, you have to have that in there because I did see in the credits there was like something about a Barbie song mentioned, like in the music credits, and I was like, when was that played? I did not hear that once. Like, I don't get it.
Oh, and one small thing I did like when Iris comes over to Barry's apartment and she wants a beer and he phases through the wall to get her beer and he opens it, and because he was shaking the beers at super speed, it explodes in his face. Good job.
I thought that was clever too.
That was funny.
Yeah, that was a good little moment.
So we'll end on that high note.
And we'll transition to the other stuff. So we're talking about things we've watched or reading, or we're currently playing, whatever. Dylan, what have you been up to lately?
Several things. So continuing House of Leaves, and that's really good. I like it a lot. Diablo 4. I'm in Act 5 now. Great game. A couple of the boss fights are very frustrating, though, especially for playing as a melee character. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but Tyrant King Broll, what an asshole. Hated that so much. I had to lower the world tier difficulty to beat him, and then I put it back up.
Wow.
After.
Damn.
Yeah. But also Temple of Doom, Last Crusade, and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I've done my Indiana Jones rewatches in prep for Dial of Destiny. Temple of Doom, still not my favorite. There's a lot that I like about it. The atmosphere is really good. And you know, it's darker, set design's awesome. Movie's racist as shit.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
It's so Last Crusade, amazing. It's so good. The dynamic between Harrison Ford and Sean Connery is perfect. It might be my favorite. It's like it goes back and forth between Last Crusade and Raiders. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, hadn't seen it since theaters in 2008. I only saw it the one time. The beginning of the movie is super strong. It has a good first 30 to 40 minutes or so. But then it gets very boring for like a long time. And I don't know what it is exactly, but it just does not click into place. It being about aliens is kind of weird. And you know, it doesn't really work, but it's not, I didn't dislike it as much as I remembered. So there's that, but it's not a good movie.
Objectively, of the four, it's the worst one.
It is the worst one. Yes. What about you? What have you been watching or doing?
So I've just been trucking along with the same stuff I was talking about last week. So playing lots of Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, continuing that. It is such a like just it sucks out of you, just like it
Yeah.
just drains you because you're just like, I can't think about anything but Tears of the Kingdom. I need to go figure this out. Like
It was one of the first games in a long time that like I would stay up too late playing it. You know,
mhm.
I was like, because it's like I could just
Yeah,
do one more thing. It's like, but on your way to that thing, you're like, just thing over there.
exactly. Yeah, just you place a thing on your map and you go to that in that direction, and along the way you get distracted by 5 other side quests
Hmm.
and shiny objects. So there's it's taken I'm taking my time, but yeah, it's dominating my life. It's consuming everything, and then I'm just continuing to read American Gods by Neil Gaiman.
Hmm.
Still liking it. Yeah, I think that's kind of it for me.
All right. Well, we are going back to our normal schedule now, so it'll be 2 weeks until our next episode, and that's going to be on Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. So go see that.
Woo-hoo.
And the initial buzz out of Cannes was pretty negative, but a lot of the reviews since then have been much more positive. So it seems like Disney miscalculated by screening that at Cannes first. And I've also heard it's not quite as safe of a story as we've been predicting it to be. So I'm interested now. And if it's bad, there have been bad Indiana Jones movies before, but I think it's going to be pretty good. I'm excited to talk about it. And
Yeah, that'll be fun.
yeah, and then we got lots of exciting episodes coming up too. I mean, Mission Impossible, Barbie, Oppenheimer, all in the next
Ugh.
6 to 8 weeks or so. So
Stacked
it is
slate.
two stacked, honestly. Like I wish they were more spread out because they're all competing with each other at the box office, and that dictates what gets made. But
Mhm.
we'll see you guys in 2 weeks for Indiana Jones. Until then, where can people find you online, Niles?
Follow me on Instagram at Niles Got No Styles. What about you, Dylan? Where can people find you?
On Instagram at DylanD1026, on Twitter at D-Day Movies, on YouTube at D-Day Movies, on Twitch at D-Day_movies. You can find both of us on any podcast platform of your choice, as well as on YouTube at Play, Pause, Rewind. Please like and subscribe on YouTube. Give us a 5-star review on those podcast platforms. You can also find us at Play, Pause, Rewind videos on YouTube. All of our spoiler-free sections are uploaded separately there, as well as extra videos like Rewind, which we did on the Star Wars original trilogy. And this week we are filming our Raiders of the Lost Ark Rewind that will come out before the new movie. So stay tuned for that. And we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Thank you so much for watching or listening. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.